to fill us in about the past quarter and the way ahead as well. Good morning, Mr. Chaturvedi. Thanks so much for joining in. Well, it's been a bit of a rough quarter. But, before we get to your numbers, I wanted to ask you about the ibuprofen prices. I'm looking at an international chart, and I believe prices have started moving up over there as well, particularly in the last 30 days. It's moved up to around $15 odd. Could you tell us if that is the case? Are you seeing some bit of an up move in prices? And why exactly is this happening, particularly in Europe? Are there some shutdowns?
No, there are no shutdowns. You're absolutely right. There is a slight uptick in prices, but the uptick is it's too early to say that the prices are going up. It's very, very early days. But these prices have started to go up only in the last couple of weeks, and that wasn't the case in Q2. So you see, our muted numbers, not only, ibuprofen perhaps had a less of an impact. Most of our muted numbers were on account of the chemicals business.
Right.
And I'll talk more about that in a little bit.
Mr. Chaturvedi, if you could just give us a couple of numbers. What was the average price of ibuprofen in the past quarter? And if you could tell us, even if it's temporary, what is the current price of ibuprofen? Go ahead.
So in the export markets, the prices of ibuprofen continue to be, $12 plus range, whereas, in the domestic market, they are slightly lower, anything maybe at $1 lower or so. But I think all of these are, the pricing may be stable, but the demand that we saw is looking to come back now. And I believe that some of the changes that we've seen in this industry are temporary and not structural. In other words, yes, the ibuprofen business, if you look at it a few years ago, was riding high and then it came down. And I think, we are past the lowest cusp and it's on its way back up.
Okay, so you're saying the worst is over?
Yes.
All right, that's on ibuprofen. The chemical segment weakness is quite stark. I mean, the revenues have fallen double digits, almost 15%. There's an EBIT loss of 3 crores in the chemical business. Can you tell us what's the prognosis? Do you continue to see pressure there in the second half?
No, I think things are improving. We already, in the Q3, we have data for 1 month. But what happened in Q2 was our key raw material, acetic acid, is imported. And because it's an imported product, the import prices and the volumes are done, several weeks and months in advance. Sometime during Q2, what happened was that globally the prices of acetic acid contracted dramatically. So what that did for us as an organization was there was a period of time when we were stuck with high cost inventory of acetic acid. And that's really what created, this problem for us in Q2. All that inventory has been cleared out. And going forward, we see the chemicals business back to profitability again in Q3 and Q4.
So you're saying in Q3 and Q4, chemical business will return back to profitability, right?
Yes.
Okay, just one more question from my end. What are the new product launches that you're looking at? The reason I ask is because is there any scope for you to de-risk the revenues, and what percentage will come in from new molecules?
So if you look at, I think you are specifically referring to the pharmaceutical business.
Yes.
And there, when I look at ibuprofen versus the other APIs, the other APIs are already, 40% or so in that range, 35 to 40% of the revenue. And if you compare this to, maybe a few years ago, where ibuprofen was the dominant part of our business and contributed, perhaps 90% plus, so by that yardstick, I would actually argue that the business is already de-risked. Okay. But going forward, I would say within the next couple of quarters, we do expect that the non-ibuprofen business will be, greater than 40%. And maybe within a year and a half, the non-ibuprofen portfolio will be 50% of the total pharma portfolio.
Okay.
So clearly, we are on that path of de-risking. And you talked about, what are the other products that we offer in addition to ibuprofen. Products like metformin, clopidogrel, paracetamol, pantoprazole, levetiracetam, fenofibrate, lamotrigine. These are some of the products. And I want to add that, the structural shift that I'm talking about is that the demand is recovering. I mean, if I just take the case of metformin, metformin is a growing product.
Mr. Chaturvedi, we've got a broad gist out there. You're looking at de-risking the business. Very quickly, before we let you go, we're a little tight on time. Margins, you were guiding for mid-teen margins earlier on a consolidated basis. Now, that's not happened in the past quarter. So my question to you is, will margins move back to mid-teens? You could give us a range on the margin front. And by the end of this year, what kind of a growth are we looking at in comparison to the past year? That's FY22. Very quickly.
Okay. So margins, we expect, that by the time the year closes, we should be back into double digits. Whether they will be in mid-teens, we are certainly targeting that. They will be back into the double-digit range. And in terms of growth, it will be, a single-digit growth versus last year. And that's really not on account of the price correction that we've had in ethyl acetate. So volumes are, more or less flat, but the price correction is more than, 10-15%. And that has really what is impacting our growth. So what will happen is you will see a greater shift of the business coming into the pharma side this year than in the previous years.
All right, so we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us with a lot of that detail. Very helpful. So both pharma and chemicals business.